Hi, I'm Bob Kovacs, and this is a review of the Panasonic Lumix DMC-ZS50 digital camera. This is the camera. I just got it a couple of days ago. I bought it from B&H Photo, and I'm going to be talking a lot about this camera. I'm very familiar with this Lumix product line from Panasonic because years ago I got a Panasonic ZS7, and I really liked this camera. It took pretty good pictures and it did pretty good video, although the video resolution topped out at only 720p. All things considered, it was pretty darn good 720p video. In fact, I shot several videos with this camera that are on YouTube, and a couple of them have made some pretty good money. So I've made some money with the ZS7. Now, I got a problem with the ZS7, so I decided to replace it with the ZS20. The ZS20 was a bit of a disappointment. It shot pretty good video, and it would do 1080p video, so that was pretty good. However, the pictures that I got from this, although it was a little higher resolution, were not as good quality as the ZS7. Both pictures and video are important to me. I do a lot of photography, I do a lot of videography, and I do both of those things in the expectation that I'll earn money with them. And although this is not really a professional kind of camera, nonetheless, it has many features that work well for me. The ZS50, just like the two I showed you before it, can easily fit in a pocket. I'm going to be going to trade shows and other places where I'm a reporter and I need to have very quick access to all my tools, and they can't be bulky and heavy and consume a lot of space. So this camera will really fit the bill in that regard. So let's talk a little bit about some of the features of the ZS50. Now, one of the features that really appealed to me is the ring around the lens, which can be set to a variety of functions. I was really anxious to confirm that this works for focus, because one of the things that I like to do is set the focus manually so it doesn't drift. Nothing makes a video look more amateurish than a focus that drifts in and out and in and out. So, and I have confirmed that there is a setting for this to do manual focus. And by the way, it's pretty good. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Looking around the camera, up on top, you've got a dedicated video button. You have the on-off switch that's right there. This is the shutter button, and around the shutter button is the zoom control, and there's a dial to select the various functions of the camera. On the back is a eyepiece viewfinder. This is an electronic viewfinder, and it's very high resolution in the ZS50. Now, just before the ZS50 came out, Panasonic released the ZS40. The ZS40 also has this eyepiece electronic viewfinder, but it's not as high a resolution as it is in the ZS50. The screen back here is a 3-inch diagonal LCD screen, also pretty nice resolution. It does not fold out, it's fixed flat in place. However, in the daylight, in bright sunlight, I'm actually impressed that you can see this screen fairly well. However, if you can't see this screen, or if you, for whatever reason, if you want more support by holding the camera to your eye, you've got the eyepiece viewfinder, which will, of course, block out all of the ambient light. The controls on this are virtually identical to the controls on my two other Panasonic cameras, so that really works for me. One additional control is a Wi-Fi control, and to be honest with you, I haven't used that very much, so if I talk about that, it's only because I've had a few minutes experience. Underneath this little flap here, there's two connectors. The top one is an HDMI connector, and the bottom one is a semi-proprietary USB port. Panasonic does give you a USB cable and a USB charger so that you can charge the battery in the camera. There is no separate charger that Panasonic supplies with the camera. There probably is a separate charger, but you'll have to pay extra for it. It doesn't come with the camera. Now, one of the things I wondered about was whether the battery was the same battery as my two previous cameras, because those two batteries are identical in the ZS7 and ZS20. I can swap between the two cameras, and that worked really well for me, especially since the ZS7 came with an external charger. However, this battery in the ZS50 is slightly different in size and shape than my two other cameras' batteries. So I can't use this battery in those cameras or those batteries in this camera. It's got its own battery. So at the moment I have only one battery for the ZS7. And of course, under the flap here is also where the chip goes for the camera, and I believe this the ZS50 will take SDXC chips, so you can use chips that at the moment you can buy them up to 128 gigabytes. So that's a look at the camera. There's two loops, one on either side for a strap. I like my strap on the right side of the camera, so I've got that there. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the more interesting features of the camera, including its picture quality and video quality. First, a look at the video. These are some animal shots I got in my backyard, and these show the range of the 30 times zoom lens on the ZS50. It can really get in close if you like to shoot wildlife. So this test is to demonstrate the quality of the internal microphones in the ZS50. Right now the camera is about 3.5 feet away from me, so you can judge by the sound quality what the quality of the microphones built into the ZS50 is. The ZS50 does slow motion video, including 640 by 480 VGA quality at 240 frames per second, as well as 720p HD video quality at 120 frames per second. Both are good, but the VGA quality, if you can use it, is just buttery smooth. This is my cat Maddie drinking a stream of water at 240 frames per second. Now let's look at some pictures. This is my house and it looks very clear. It's in bright sun, so it was very sharp. However, if you look at the far right-hand side, this is a close-up that shows that that tree is out of focus. That's only 10 or 12 feet from the house, and I don't think that's out of focus because it's in the background so much. I think that there are some lens focusing issues at the edges of the lens. Now there's a shot of me in front of a bright window without a flash, and then with a flash. Clearly it's better with the flash, but it did a pretty good job without the flash too, getting some catch light in the eyes. Here's a flower that looks pretty nice. When you go to full resolution on the flower, that looked pretty good. Very nice and smooth, not much noise. Here's a white flower, a crocus. Also, it came out very well. We then got a couple of shots in a restaurant. Here's a table setting, and here is a plate of food. All things considered, considering that was just natural light, I thought those were pretty good. Now let's look at a portrait setting. This is the scene setting called portrait, and that's me in the shot. And when you go into full resolution, notice that the eyes are soft, and it seems to be focused a little more like on my sideburn on the right-hand side there of my face. And then I tried the red eye reduction. The upper part of this image is without red eye reduction, and the lower part is with red eye reduction. As you can see, this is my wife. She's very susceptible to red eye, and she has a lot of red eye in both of these, although a little bit less in the lower shot where the red eye reduction was turned on. The ZS50, like the other ZS family members before it, has a built-in flash on the front face of the camera. So it's always there if you need it. It's not a fantastic flash, but it does serve a useful purpose. However, you have to be careful because it's easy to block the flash with the finger on this camera. It's easier to block it on this camera than it is to block it on some other cameras I've used. One of the features I'm really looking forward to using with the ZS50 is its manual focus and the ability to control that focus with this ring around the lens. I like to set a camera to manual focus and then have it focused on a person who's at a podium or at an object, and then have it stay focused on that thing regardless of what happens around it. Because I found that when a point-and-shoot camera hunts for its correct focus, it often it looks very amateurish, and I don't like it at all. So I'm very glad that this camera has an easy-to-use manual focus. Other cameras have manual focus, but this one is easy to use. So to use the manual focus, here's what you have to do. First of all, the setting dial on top of the camera has to be in some other mode than automatic. It can't be in automatic mode. I often run my camera in the P for program mode, and the manual focus will work in that mode. So if it's in the P for program or shutter mode or aperture mode, you come back here and you touch the macro focus button, and that accesses autofocus, macro focus, and M down here for manual focus, MF it says. So touch manual focus, hit the button, and now you're in manual focus. When you do that, you'll see there's an on-screen indication of where the focus is. One of the really cool features of the ZS50 is the fact that it can do slow motion. Okay, other cameras can do slow motion too, but for a point-and-shoot camera, something you could slip in your pocket, it does pretty good slow motion. Now, getting to the slow motion setting is a little tricky. You have to turn the camera to scene mode, So to get to scene mode, you have to rotate the mode dial to scene mode, which says SCN. So that's scene mode. Come down here, and now it puts all the various scene modes on the screen. Touch the center button. I have it actually pre-adjusted to get to the high speed here. So I'm going to touch it, and I also have it pre-adjusted to do the different frame rates. So I'm going to go ahead and touch that. So now it's preset to do the 120 frame per second 720p video. Now if you want to change scene modes, all you do is rotate this dial, and you'll rotate through the various different scene modes. As they go from left to right, the one that's next to the last is the high-speed video. It's a little tricky to find that. That's where I found it if you wanted to do the slow motion video with the ZS50. One of the things that you'll probably have to do on the camera is to adjust the exposure. If you have a point-and-shoot camera, adjusting the exposure is pretty much the same on that as it is on this one here. This upper button here on the control dial is the exposure button. You touch it, and then you can swing this around to adjust the exposure, and it works very well. You've got a pretty nice display on the screen. Now you can also set this up by going into the menu so that this ring around the lens can be set so that it controls exposure. I can see where that's a good idea in certain situations, but I expect to primarily use the ring for focus since I'm so concerned about keeping a steady focus. So what's the bottom line about all of this? The bottom line is the ZS50 is a good camera. I especially like the video features. I especially like the manual focus. I like the really smooth, ultra slow motion that you get with the VGA, and even the somewhat faster slow motion, but still slow motion, you get with 720p. I really like that. I really like the 30 times zoom lens. It gets you in so much closer, especially since I like to do a lot of wildlife stuff. So I like that a lot. However, the photography quality, the quality of the photographs are not what I was hoping it would be. I was hoping that when this camera stepped down in resolution from 18 megapixel to 12 megapixel, that it would make a difference in the video noise, the picture noise, the digital noise you get with photographs, and it doesn't really seem to make a difference. I have a ZS20, and it is maybe a little worse than the ZS50, but the ZS50 still has some of that. Now, this has RAW capability, and we've just started getting into processing them with RAW to see if that makes a difference in terms of this noise. But the fact is that this is a $400 camera. Now in a couple months it'll probably be discounted to $350 or $325, but it's a $400 camera. It has a small sensor. There's only so much of the physics that you can get around when you try to compare it with a camera with a large sensor. You can't get a large sensor camera with a 30 times zoom. Doesn't happen. You can't get a large sensor camera in this small a package, at least not one that has an integrated lens. So this camera has a lot of things going for it if you need the compactness. Unfortunately, I would say the photo quality is fair to good at best. The video quality is good to very good. I like the lens a lot. I like the functionality. I like being able to adjust the manual focus. I like the way the buttons work and the menus are, even though it was a little tricky finding where the slow motion was. Now that I know where it is, I know where to look. So I like a lot of things about this, and I in general will give it a recommendation, not an extremely positive recommendation. You have to know your needs. If you need the long zoom, this has it. If you want really good photos, you might want to look elsewhere. A camera with a larger sensor might be what you're looking for. If you want really broadcast quality videos, you probably need a larger sensor camera for that as well. However, if you want good quality videos that'll be fine on YouTube and possibly even for some other applications, this will do okay. So that is my overall feeling and review of the Panasonic Lumix DMC-ZS50. I'm Bob Kovacs. Thanks for watching.